How could I raise you when I didn't love myself? What would I do for you? What nothing I could do for y'all?
You didn't try.
Yes, sir. When I did try, when I did. No, you did. You ain't mean that y'all love me when I can do something for y'all. Then y'all always, then y'all stab me in the back. He won't have
Why not? I always be his
because
mother.
he will get what's coming to him.
Why not? I always be his mother.
You might always be the mother, but you not a mama. A mama. I'm sorry, Your Honor, but this is a lot on my chest.
Mr. Hoyer has spent 14 years searching for his father and sadly found his alleged father has passed. However, Mrs. Porter and her mother, Mrs. Horn, claim Mr. Hoyer has no ties to their family whatsoever and is here to prove that.
Mr. Hoyer, after 14 years of being in foster care, you desperately searched for your father. Sadly, that search ended when you learned that your alleged father, Mr. James Horn, was tragically killed.
This might be one of the saddest stories on paternity court. Mr. Hoyer spent 14 years in foster care with zero idea of who his father was. And to make matters worse, when he finally thinks he has found him, he finds out he passed away. And the family he believes he finally found denies all relationships with him.
So, Mr. Hoyer, please share. What was it like growing up without a father?
Your Honor, it was like hell growing up without a father. I was taken away when I was 3 and 9. I was in foster care for 14 years, got adopted when I was 14.
Wait, so his mother was a stripper, so that's why he has no idea who the father is. Wow, what a messed up childhood he had. And to make matters worse, apparently, the new boyfriend knew exactly who the father was. Let's get some more details on this.
So this is a photo of the man you were told is your father.
Yes, Your Honor.
When you look at this picture, do you see yourself?
I do in some ways. I see myself through the smile and through the forehead and the eyebrow.
They do look somewhat similar, I can't lie. But as we know, looks don't mean anything. Only DNA. And hold up, the alleged father on his deathbed mentioned he doesn't have any kids. Could this be true, or was he just hiding his kid? Let's get some more information.
He went over and asked my alleged uncle about the name, James Horn, and he was like, yes, that's my brother. So my adopted brother came and got me, took me over to his neighbors, and that's how I met him.
What was that encounter like? What happened? Take me step by step.
So that's how he found out this man could possibly be his father. What a mess this all is. Some family members say he could be his kid, others say there's no chance. All this kid wants to know is who the father is, nothing else.
My son Arthur brought him in, and he said, I want you to see him, see is this your grandson? And here's the word I said. I said no, because I hadn't heard it before. Because before my son left me, he said he didn't have any kids.
Mrs. Porter already said that she was pretty close to her late brother. If indeed he had a serious relationship with Mrs. Gentry, wouldn't he have mentioned it to his sister? Especially because Mrs. Gentry here claims they were in love.
It was a secret. I didn't even know I was really pregnant until I was 6 months. But like I have told my son, there is another man before this man.
Wait a minute, is Mrs. Gentry saying that she had sexual relations with another man during the time her son was conceived? That means two things. One, she cheated on the man she claims to have been in love with. Two, she's not certain Mr. Horn is her son's father.
When the first time we ever seen her was 2 weeks after the funeral. 2 weeks after my brother was put in the ground, this young lady came and knocked at my mother's door. She says, I have your brother's child.
So Miss Porter and her family sent Miss Gentry away with her little boy 20 years ago? That sounds a bit brutal. What if he turns out to be their blood? That's 23 years down the drain just because he didn't look like them. And there's even more.
Oh, well, they don't want to be a part of his life. I'm going to go contact the other gentleman.
No, I did not. I just walked out and I forgot all about it.
Okay.
Miss Gentry sounds so shady if you ask me. After she was sent away by Mr. Horn's family, she made no attempt to find her son's father. This would have made sense if she tried to be a good mother, but she did not attempt to do that too.
Told him anything about my brother? It was awful. She told him he was a crackhead. She told him he was a drunk. She told him he wasn't no good. My brother was an upstanding.
Did I ever tell you that?
Miss Gentry has been a terrible mother, spoon-feeding Mr. Hoyer lies about Mr. Horn. And we totally understand Mrs. Porter's anger because Mr. Hoyer deserves a family. He deserves love. And most of all, he deserves to know his father.
He won't have
Why
to
not?
deal with
I
you.
always be his
Because
mother.
he will get what's coming to him.
Why not? I always be his mother.
You might always be the mother, but you're not a mama. A mama. I'm sorry, Your Honor, but this is a lot on my chest.
That's right, Mrs. Porter. There's a huge difference between giving birth to a child and being that child's mother. And so far, so good. Mrs. Gentry has failed terribly at the latter. Let's see what Mrs. Gentry has to say.
You heard the
I
whole
didn't bring
entire
this
family.
out.
He don't know
You
nothing
did.
about no aunts and uncles,
need to come up
no
and take it up
grandparents.
again.
He don't know nothing.
Miss Horn, I have to ask you, because as you can hear, this is a very passionate.
Mrs. Gentry isn't even the least bit apologetic. It seems like she was forced to be in court today, and she's not even trying to deny it. Minute after minute, we see how terrible a mother she is. But wait, there's more.
Do you feel that there's any possibility that he could be your grandchild?
It could be. I can't prove it, ma'am. I wish it was. I hope so.
You said you do hope so.
Now that Mrs. Porter admits that there's a resemblance between her late brother and Mr. Hoyer, you can tell that they really want him in their family, and maybe, just maybe, the late Mr. Horn lied to them about not having any kids.
That makes me believe that there's someone out there that will accept me. So hopefully I am James Horn's son, because I will actually have a place where I will be able to fit in.
We can see why he desperately wants the results to come out positive. It's been even more difficult for Mr. Hoyer to fit in because he is biracial. His mom did say she was from a racist family, so maybe she couldn't deal with being the mom of a biracial child.
You deserve that, sweetheart.
Yes.
You do.
Yes, he do.
I think it's time for the results.
Yes, he do.
Will Mr. Hoyer get his dream family, or will he have to continue his search for his father? The results are in, and we are about to get the biggest shock ever. Are you ready? Hang on to your seat because this gets crazy.
As it pertains to the likelihood of whether Mr. James Horn is your biological father, the DNA test results have determined that Mr. Horn is not likely your biological father.
Ms. Rawlings thinks that Mr. Kidd and his mom are trying to steal her kid from her, and she is not having it. Mr. Kidd and his mother, on the other hand, are certain Nathaniel is theirs. Let us get to the bottom of this thorny case.
You say Ms. Rawlings is a manipulative user who convinced you that you were the father of her son, Nathaniel, then changed her mind when someone better came along. You and your mother say Ms. Rawlings' mind games have
This is about to be one interesting case. How do you tell a girl you cannot have kids? Then all of a sudden, you're sure her child is yours. There's something off in this story, and we've got to find out ASAP, and there's more.
How it happened was we met through a mutual friend, and I didn't know anything about Mr. Kidd. Starting off, my mutual friend ended up leaving, and the situation that I was in, I didn't have anywhere to go. And that's how me and Mr. Kidd ended up.
Looks like one big love rectangle. Just how many people are involved in this story? Mr. Kidd, Ms. Rawlings, the mutual friend, the new lady. It's kind of hard to keep up. One thing we've gathered, though, is she was in a sexual relationship with Mr. Kidd and some other guy at the same time.
No, ma'am.
You just told him you were pregnant,
When
and
I
then
found
somehow
out-
he assumed he was the father?
When I found out I was pregnant, Mr. Kidd told me himself that he has some type of rare form blood disease and that me and his child would die.
Well, 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 the story's coming together now. See, Mr. Kidd didn't really understand the disease, and because he's never gotten anyone pregnant, he thought Ms. Rawlings couldn't be pregnant for him. What a naive young man. But it doesn't end there.
So it wasn't just a sexual relationship?
No, ma'am. We were just, she just needed somewhere to stay. So I was just looking out for her, and it just became a sexual encounter.
It was an encounter?
More than one, but you know.
So that's what we call a sexual relationship?
Yes, ma'am.
It's a form of a relationship where you have sex, but you have no commitment.
At least Mr. Kidd, his mother, and Ms. Rawlings agree on one thing. Mr. Kidd and Ms. Rawlings were in a strictly sexual relationship. There were no feelings attached, no love, nothing. They were just in that situation because they were living together.
Who got my son's baby pictures? She said, that's not your son. I said, yes, that is. I gave birth to him. I know who he is. She said, that's his son. And I was like, what? Hold on. No, why am I just now hearing about this? So I contacted his friend who gave me.
It's beautiful to see how badly Ms. Jenkins wants the baby to be her son's, and also nice to know that she has shared beautiful moments with him. It's not every day you see grandmas like this on paternity court. And guess what? It gets even worse.
Here at the defendant podium, you say you know Mr. Kidd is not your child's biological father.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a manipulation tactic.
It was as long as you were giving her what she wanted and needed at the time.
Now we're back in the maze. Baby Nathanel can't possibly look like everybody. At this point, it seems everyone is seeing what they want to see. And it's quite funny because it isn't all about the child's physical appearance.
I actually came to the hospital after I gave birth to Nathaniel, and they instantly, you seen it in his face and in Nathaniel's face, his face lit up. And even his brother was there and was like, yeah, man, that's your son.
It honestly feels like Ms. Rawlings is one lady who is easily persuaded. This person tells her her son looks like them, and she agrees. Someone else says the same thing, and she agrees. Make up your mind, sister.
She was going through a situation and got kicked out of where she lived because her choice of men are not just the greatest, I guess, in the world. He wasn't safe. She wasn't safe. She was trying to get her life together. She gave me the baby for a period of time.
The more she speaks, the more we see how confused Ms. Rawlings is. It's one thing to tell a man he's not the father of your son, and it's another thing to take advantage of his family's kindness and availability. It's unfair to keep manipulating them that way.
What is your assessment of this particular medical situation?
So I think there's two separate issues here. There was an issue about RH blood incompatibility.
Yes.
And that has to do with a mother and a baby, and if there's different blood types between the father of the baby, positive and negative.
Well, that is out of the way. It appears Mr. Kidd is very much able to father a child, which means he's back in the race for Nathaniel's paternity. And that's not even close to the end of this fiasco.
Your belief? Because when you came in, you don't really think he's the biological father.
No, ma'am.
And Ms. Jenkins and Mr. Kidd, if Nathaniel is proven not to be your biological child, grandchild, do you still want to maintain a relationship with him?
That makes sense because he was never in a relationship with Ms. Rawlings. If the child turns out not to be his, they'd have nothing tying them together. This is one insane case, and it gets even worse. Let's see.
As much as I can, but I couldn't take care of him as if he was my child.
All right, I think I've heard enough. I'm ready for the results. Jerome?
Well, Judge, we've also had enough. Who is Nathaniel's dad, Mr. Kidd or the other guy somewhere? What do you think? This is one very complicated case, but the test results will hopefully resolve it once and for all.
Mr. Kidd, you are the father. You are the father.
Thank you.
And at least even the fact that he said that he would have stood up, that was what I was still going for, period. The fact that that is his son, I am happy because me and him, we don't have a hate type relationship.
Mr. Cooper and his mother believe Armani, his last child with his wife, isn't his. But his wife, Ms. Cooper, is confident he's Armani's father and is uncomfortable with how much her mother-in-law meddles in their marriage. Let us find out more details about this case.
So today you are here to break the cycle because another of your sons, Mr. Cooper, has a child whose paternity is also in question. Now, Mr. Cooper, you say your wife, Mrs. Cooper, was secretly sleeping with you and another man around the same time she conceived your daughter.
Yet again, we have a lady versus mama and son type of case. But this time around, it's a married couple in question. Why does Mr. Cooper think baby Armani isn't his? Let's find out what this case is about.
The first time I had an inclination that something was going on. I was actually working and I got sent home early. There was a power outage. They sent us home.
Wow. So Mrs. Cooper brought another man into her marital home and lied that her husband didn't live there. That's one bold move. And he must have been there several times while Mr. Cooper was at work.
Walter has cheated on me so much that at that time, what I did was I wanted Walter to feel all the pain that he had inflicted on me all them years. We've been off and on for 9 years.
Your husband cheated on you, and the best way you could handle it was to cheat too? His actions hurt her and the kids, and she thought the best way to correct that was to hurt him back. That is one absurd conflict resolution technique, and it doesn't even ADD up.
Talking is one thing, ignoring you is one thing, but if you feel like you gotta step out your marriage to get added attention or a conversation, then just get a divorce.
Understandably, she wanted Wante's divorce, and he didn't. But a marriage is a marriage. A marriage is supposed to be sacred, and when it turns into a tit-for-tat scheme, it'll keep going down, down, down till it's destroyed.
After that particular incident, I thought we were getting things back in order, okay?
After this incident with the cheating, you say in your mind, okay, we've confronted it, it's out on the table, let's just try to start over.
Mrs. Cooper's admitting that she saw other people while separated from her husband explains why the family is in court today. Now, we're beginning to see why Mr. Cooper and his mom think the baby is for someone else.
I know who the other guy is.
Okay.
When I actually had a chance to meet him, we would sit down, talk, we hang out, things of this stuff.
You and the guy she cheated with?
Me and the guy that she cheated with.
Of all the men she could possibly cheat with, Mrs. Cooper chose her husband's friend. That must have been a punch in his gut when he found out. And guess what? This case gets even more complicated.
My concern is this. When I look at Armani, I don't see me.
So, Miss Cooper, I see you're very emotional.
When I conceived, I was with Walter. We both went to the doctors and...
Sir, when we look at Armani, we don't see you either. Fine, he has white blood in his ancestry and all, but this baby does not look like Mr. Cooper. We understand why he and his mother are not convinced. However, we must always remember that paternity is hardly ever about skin tone or resemblance, and it's more about the DNA.
So, Mr. Cooper, you signed the birth certificate.
Yes, I did.
And at that time, you said, I'm going to be her father. Did you have any doubt?
I've had a doubt.
Aside from the subject of race, Mr. Cooper and his mom are disturbed by Miss Cooper's infidelity. Armani coming out looking all white was only the cherry on top. It reinforced their belief that the pregnancy was for someone else.
Issues of what's going on with me because I'm feeling like I can't write a song. I'm having problems in my own personal business life. I bring it to my wife and I tell her this is what the situation is. We tend to, I brought it to you.
Hold up. Mr. Cooper met Mrs. Cooper when she was pregnant by another man? Who? That means that he stepped up as the father of that child and married her. And since then, they raised the boy together, along with their other kids. And now it seems like it's happening again.
I believe in my heart that that's his. That's his baby.
And as you look at her, do you see?
I see him
Mr.
in
Cooper?
her. If you look at her face, her eyes change colors just like his does.
Mrs. Cooper seems very confident, but what does the way the baby sleeps have to do with anything? That piece of detail is inconsequential to the matter at hand, which is a very one issue because Mr. Cooper's about to find out if he's been taking care of a child that isn't his for the second time.
So as my son, you took on this responsibility. They respect your wife needs to respect you, and they all need to love their kids. And that's how I feel about it.
You know what, Ms. Moore?
Well, Grandma's right on point, and it's time to put an end to this debate. Is Armani a product of Mr. and Mrs. Cooper's marriage, or is she a product of infidelity? Well, the test results will definitely shock you. Let's find out.
Mr. Cooper, you are not her father.
You know I still love you. This is something you all gonna have to work through. Listen to me, Ashley. Hold your head up. You have children that now you have to stand up and be a real mother. You have a little girl, and you cannot.
Ms. Reinhardt believes that Ms. Crow claims her late son, J.C. Turner, is her baby daddy just so she can get death benefits. However, Ms. Crow says her son Thomas is a result of the love she and J.C. shared while he was alive. Let us find out more.
Ms. Crow, you have summoned the defendant to court to prove that her deceased son, J.C. Turner, fathered your 2-year-old son, Thomas. You want Thomas to know who his father is, and you say that Ms. Reinhardt has done everything she can to sabotage your efforts. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's always difficult to get through a case where the alleged father is dead because we don't get to hear his side of the story. Now, all we've got is what his mom knows or what she thinks she knows.
Then just the money. I would like help with my son, yes, of course, but my son cannot grow up and meet his father. So he deserves that right to know who his father is and to know who his family is.
And to this point, he doesn't have any real knowledge of his father. You have not talked to him about his father, or have you?
It's nice of Miss Crow to give father and son the opportunity to bond over the phone, but I'm curious to find out the rest of the story. How did JC's mom know nothing about this? Well, there is only one way to find out.
I understand.
My son and I had a very tight relationship, and Jay would tell me everything when nobody else was around. I knew my son inside and out, and I just don't as a mother, as a grandmother, having 4 babies of my own.
Looks like it's going to be a tough one because Ms. Reinhardt isn't even on the fence about it. She is totally confident the baby is not her grandchild. But why? How could she possibly be so sure?
Became inseparable. We, developed, feelings, and it did happen all too fast. He did ask me to be his girlfriend, and we did have unprotected sex as well, so.
Although her relationship with JC was fast-paced, the progression was pretty normal. 2 people met, fell in love, slept together, and the woman got pregnant. Mrs. Crow's story is quite convincing.
You told him the sky was purple.
Well, that's your own opinion. That's your own opinion.
The mental capacity of a 16-year-old.
And this okay, and you know what? He had feelings.
He was schizophrenic.
He had feelings.
He was schizophrenic, and he had stress seizures.
Now this is hilarious for so many reasons. Ms. Reinhardt's little technique to identify her grandkids is just ridiculous. Besides, the pictures look identical, don't they? That baby looks like grandma to me. But again, we cannot be so sure.
Silly sense of humor like Jay. He likes to dance like Jay. And, just right there, you can see it. Like his hair, that is Jay. And, there are things about him that are a lot like me.
Ms. Reinhardt says the baby doesn't look like her, and Ms. Crow's like, that's okay because the baby looks like his father. Even though both metrics don't matter in the long run, Ms. Crow currently has the upper hand.
I have a bowed left leg. My daughter has a bowed left leg. JC was pigeon-toed from birth. So JC lived being severely pigeon-toed.
Here we go again with all the features. Can we please cut to the chase and be serious for once? This is no joking matter. This grandma needs to understand that the case is more serious than this.
He told everybody that we would come across, friends, even people we didn't know, he had conversations with. She's pregnant with my baby. He's really happy. He's excited. He never denied my child. And I knew for a fact that, he's the father because I haven't been with anybody else. I was only with him in that time frame.
Ms. Crow made a good choice in breaking up with JC for the safety of herself and her 2 other kids. But how come nobody mentioned these kids until now? Guess they're not so relevant to the case.
Of another man that
my
she was
boyfriend.
with.
That's not his father. He was Jamaican. Does he look half Jamaican? And I lost my father the same year my son lost his father.
You can tell Ms. Reinhardt is trying so hard to look for proof that the baby's not JC's. Now, she brings up the issue of Ms. Crow's Jamaican boyfriend when the baby doesn't even look the least bit Jamaican.
I guess the question then becomes, why is your pursuit different in death than it was in life?
What?
Meaning after the death, you had the means, the time, the wherewithal.
Now that is one tough question. You broke up with the man and he only hung out with his son once. You had 9 months before he passed, but didn't do anything until you saw his obituary?
I didn't even know when the baby was born because I wasn't contact.
Jay knew.
Jay knew. He's
knew.
Supposedly the alleged father, not.
It don't have to be alleged because we're gonna find out today.
So
You're gonna see for yourself.
Yes.
It is glaring how much these 2 women can't stand themselves. And it is sad because they're losing sight of what matters at the moment, the baby. Their arguments are both valid, but the baby's paternity is at stake.
Then how do you lose track of him?
That's your son.
He was mad with me because he believed that I was stealing his money. I was the one making sure his bills were paid.
Good question, because we can't push all the blame on Ms. Crow. Ms. Reinhardt was his mother at the end of the day. And if indeed he had the mental capacity of a 16-year-old, how did she leave him all alone?
And this is serious because JC is gone now.
Yeah,
he's no longer with us, but this baby, who's potentially his biological child, is here, 2 years old. Only seen his father one time.
The 2 women could keep going on and on and on, but there's no time for that. It's time to see what the results say, so Ms. Crow will know if she's getting those death benefits or not. Please read the results out, Judge Lake, and let us resolve this case once and for all.
The percentage of relatedness between Ms. Reinhardt and Thomas Crow is 99.6% you are related. That is your grandchild. Ms. Reinhardt, you have never laid eyes on your grandchild. Ms. Crow, I have to ask you, would it be okay